One way to deal with crime is to pay criminals to expose others. Tonight, Eyewitness News troubleshooter Lee Coppola reports on what it's like to be a stool pigeon and then fly the coop in his series, Sentenced to Secrecy.
It wasn't too long ago that silence was the code criminals always followed when authorities wanted them to talk about their crimes. But now, thanks to the Federal Witness Protection Program, mobsters do talk, and then at taxpayers' expense have new lives handed to them. As of today, the government has given secret identities to 4,735 witnesses, 95% of them criminals facing charges. Add to that family members, and the total number of new lives comes to nearly 17,000, with an annual price tag of about $50 million. Government officials claim more than 10,000 criminals have been convicted because of protected witnesses, and they say the money is well spent.
We used to count convictions on our hands, 5s, 10s, 15s, 20s. Now we count convictions in the many hundreds.
Buffalo has played a prominent role in the witness program. Hundreds from our area have joined over the years, and the program actually got its roots in the 1960s here in the Erie County Holding Center. That's where mobster Patty Calabrese agreed to testify against the Buffalo Mafia in exchange for a new life. A little more than a decade later, this man, Buffalo master criminal Thomas Gascoigne, also was given a new life in exchange for testimony that led to the convictions of 181 persons, some of them shown here after their arrests. But what happened in Gascoigne's new life spotlights some common criticisms of the program. Gascoigne, renamed Thomas Murray by the federal government, was relocated to Chesapeake, Virginia, where he moved into the $75,000 house. But almost as soon as he moved in, his neighbors noticed something different about him.
He was very mysterious, from New York. His name was Murray, but it was kind of evident that you could tell he was of other descent, you know, possibly Italian.
Gascoigne got a job, apparently with government help, as a maintenance man in this drugstore, and then at this store, where a fellow worker remembers him like this.
He was a very nice person to us. There wasn't anything he wouldn't do for us, but at the same time, he was taking us for a ride.
That's because Gascoigne, under his new identity, has been charged with being the mastermind of a stolen goods ring. About $250,000 in goods has been recovered, and police say thousands of dollars of the stolen property came from where Gascoigne worked. But police say they were hampered in their investigation because they thought they were interrogating Thomas Murray, the maintenance man from Chesapeake, not Thomas Gascoigne, the former master criminal from Buffalo.
It's difficult to do your job when you don't have all the facts in front of you, and we definitely did not have all the facts in front of us.
When police ran a record check on Murray through the FBI in Washington,
we came up with just that name of Thomas Murray.
But when they ran a record check under the name of Gascoigne, they got this arrest record dating back to 1948. And what angers them most is that the only reason they came up with the name Gascoigne was because they searched his house and found government paperwork revealing his dual identity. Still, the people who run the program say they help when witnesses come under investigation.
The policy of the service is that we will help any law enforcement agency in any legitimate criminal investigation.
I learned a lesson in this. I don't know now. That's the bad thing about it. You know, we have no idea. There could be 1, there could be 100. We have no way of knowing.
Tomorrow night, we'll take you to the Pacific Northwest to find out what's happened to the Buffalo witness who paved the way for the thousands of other witnesses now living secret lives. Lee Coppola, Channel 7 Eyewitness News Nightcast.
You may remember the name Patty Calabrese. He helped put the Buffalo mob behind bars when he became a government witness nearly 20 years ago and was the catalyst for the Witness Protection Program. Tonight, troubleshooter Lee Coppola reports in his series, Sentenced to Secrecy, that Calabrese still lives on the edge of danger.
Everybody calm and quiet. Nobody gets hurt.
It was the robbery of Buffalo's City Hall, depicted here by Hollywood, that put mobster Pasquale Calabrese in line to become instrumental in the Federal Witness Protection Program. Calabrese was later arrested for the robbery and became a government informant, whose testimony led to the conviction of Federico Randazzo, a top Buffalo mafioso, and several of his lieutenants. This man, now a Washington lawyer, helped develop Calabrese's new life.
He knew and we knew that in return for his testimony, he faced sudden death because there just hadn't been any live witnesses up to that point.
Calabrese now lives in the Pacific Northwest, and he strolls the streets casually in the city he calls home.
I'm not trying to hide from anybody. You know, the hide in plain sight is all over with. You know, people know who I am. you know, they know things about me and everything else.
Calabrese has worked for years at catching criminals, and his job as a detective for hire to various police agencies. Here, for instance, he meets under a phony name with a member of the Canadian Mafia to learn what he can about land dealings in Atlantic City.
You think I'm lying to you? No, I don't think so.
The mobster, the man on the right, has since been murdered. Calabrese has built himself a career as a private detective, and he no longer fears the wrath of those from Buffalo he put behind bars.
I did what I had to do. You know, they did their thing, I did mine, that's all. We're all still alive, and I don't have any remorse.
His office walls reflect the rich and famous he's come in contact with since he left Buffalo, and he makes no effort to conceal who he was, as his business card shows. He carries a gun for his job, but other than that...
I don't really know what precautions you could take, because, you know, you walk out in the street and get hit by a car.
Calabrese went into hiding before the witness program was officially formed, so he and his wife had to fend for themselves most of the time, and he says the experience was often traumatic. Would you do it all again?
No, I don't think I would. I mean, I'm still doing time, you might as well say.
In what way?
Well, I can't really go and see my family the way I want to see them.
Calabrese feels safe here. He says he's managed to stay alive through the years by using the street smarts he picked up on Buffalo's west side. Tomorrow night we'll go to the Midwest and show you another Buffalo witness who no longer needs his street smarts, and credits the witness program with giving him the chance to start a new and better life. From a city in the Pacific Northwest, Lee Coppola, Channel 7 Eyewitness News Nightcast.
Sometimes convicted felons don't have to leave the country, but they do have to leave their identities behind as part of the federal witness protection program. Tonight in his series Sentenced to Secrecy, troubleshooter Lee Coppola meets a former Buffalo mobster who says the program gave him a second chance.
You're insulting the intelligence of these people that I'm doing business with.
8 years ago, Chuck Carlo, an up-and-coming Buffalo mobster shown here behind the desk, was dealing in stolen property for the FBI. His headquarters for the sting was this appropriately named antique store on Elmwood Avenue, and Carlo agreed to run it because he had become disillusioned with his life of crime.
The mob is not what it makes itself out to be. It's not glamorous. It's not adventuresome. It's not exciting. They're deadly people.
Carlo's phony fencing operation led to the recovery of this Rembrandt painting, which was returned to the French government by the head of the FBI. His testimony also helped convict more than 50 defendants, while at the same time marking him for death by the underworld. Today, Carlo lives in hiding in this Midwest city, one of thousands of witnesses relocated with new identities by the federal government. Does he live in fear?
Well, initially I did. You know, you're always anxious and, you know, looking over your shoulder, and you're extremely cautious, you know. But after a while, it just kind of goes with time.
He runs a successful business and has managed to stay alive by following one rule of thumb.
As long as you walk the straight and narrow, as long as you stay away from that element, you know, you stay with legitimate people, no problem.
He says changing identities was hardest on his family.
You know, while we were en route to the new location, I had them practicing the new name, and you know, they would repeat back to me the place where they were supposedly born, the school that they supposedly attended.
Carlo has lived on this street of upper middle-class houses for more than 3 years, and none of his neighbors knows his real name. But he did have to tell one person about his secret past, the woman he married since starting his new life.
I think it overwhelmed her at first, you know, but she knows this man, the man that you see today. I don't think she'd associate with the old person in any manner, shape, or form. I wouldn't either.
And there's another drastic change that's taken place in the new Chuck Carlo.
I've given my life to Jesus Christ, and I'm active in church. One day I took a ride down an old dirt road in a little church, and it was there that I saw the living Christ, the living God.
But part of him still yearns for what most of us take for granted.
You'd like to be able to jump on a plane and fly home and, you know, just sit down and have Thanksgiving dinner with your family, just like anyone else does, you know, but you're not anyone else. You know, you've done something that most people would never do or ever dare to do, and because of that, you know, you're different.
Tomorrow night we'll show you another view of the witness program, this one from a convicted killer who blames the program for wrongly putting him behind bars. Lee Coppola, Channel 7 Eyewitness News Nightcast.
All this this week we've been taking a look at the federal witness protection program and how it's given some criminals a second chance at an honest life. Tonight, troubleshooter Lee Coppola reports in his series Sentenced to Secrecy that not everybody thinks the program is such a hot idea.
The witness protection program was designed to put criminals behind bars, in prisons like this one. But sometimes those convicted contend the lure of the program encourages other criminals to lie on the witness stand. Meet James Bricado. He's serving a life sentence for a murder he claims he did not commit. Killed was Stephen Hasselbeck, and authorities said Bricado shot him to death in an underworld contract hit. 3 men now in the government's witness protection program testified against Bricado. This man, Carmen Labruna, this man, Anthony Marinaccio, and this man, Robert Bricado. Robert Bricado is James Bricado's son.
If it was a stranger, I wouldn't feel bad. This is my son. It was, you know, and it's part of my blood.
The younger Bricado's testimony was crucial since it tied his father to the murder weapon. At the time, Robert Bricado had been convicted with 2 other men in the murder of Ing Sam Wing, a Grant Street laundryman. They appealed under a technicality and were awaiting a new trial when Robert Bricado took the stand against his father.
I just was numb. I was just numb. I just couldn't get over that this kid would do this to me.
After James Bricado was convicted, the murder of Ing Wing was again brought to the courts, but this time with only 2 defendants who were again convicted. James Bricado's son was not brought to trial again.
They didn't indict Robert Bricado.
Why?
He's paid for testifying against me.
Bricado spends his time behind bars painting and giving lessons to other prisoners, while his son is a free man, apparently still under government protection.
Today, you can kill somebody and join the program and get away with it, because if you go and testify against somebody else, you're going to get away with it.
This man hadn't committed a crime when he testified in a fraud trial in Salt Lake City. He was put into the witness program for his own protection, and now is an associate of Pasquale Calabrese, the first protected witness. But like Bricado, he says he too was a victim of an inept system.
Indeed, to protect myself, I actually started doing television shows, press work, so that I could say, now, if I was a protected witness, why would I be doing this?
Robertson claims it was the marshals who were assigned to protect him who blew his cover. And he says he'd tell anybody considering joining the program,
walk away, because you are going to be the only one who's going to be sentenced for the rest of your life.
Tomorrow night in our concluding report, we'll show you how the government creates new lives for witnesses and talk to the men in Washington responsible for keeping those witnesses alive. Lee Coppola, Channel 7 Eyewitness News, Nightcast.
Families have also been torn apart as a result of our government's witness protection program, which has been the subject of a special troubleshooter report. Here's part 5 of Lee Coppola's Sentenced to Secrecy.
If you take enough precautions, it's easy to blend in with the crowd. The federal government has created a society of people who live under assumed names and blend in with their neighbors in communities throughout the United States. And that society is created, and of all places, on the 2nd floor of the shopping mall in Virginia. It's behind these electronically locked doors, 1 floor above the shoppers, that identities are fashioned for the witness protection program.
The program is a partnership. If you take a witness who has a good attitude about rebuilding his life in a non-criminal atmosphere, we can give him the tools to get it done.
Safer says problems that plagued the early years of the program for the most part have been solved. And now computers store all information.
So that we know if we're going to move a witness to Oklahoma, we can ask the machine who else in that same case has been in Oklahoma, or what other danger areas are there for the witness.
Witnesses today agreed to a 21-page memorandum of rules that must be followed to stay in the program and stay alive.
Nobody under the active protection of the service has ever been killed. As of today, 28 people who were in the program at one time, or who were in the program and breached their own security, have been killed.
At the Justice Department in Washington, where it's decided who gets into the witness program, the only office watched by cameras and located behind a locked door is the one that houses the witnesses' files. The files tell the secrets of lives past and lives present, secrets the underworld would love to know.
Every major organized crime case, I don't care how sophisticated we get with electronics and everything else, every major organized crime case gets down to some witness sitting on a witness stand saying, I saw him do that.
Besides more than 10,000 convictions, Schur points out another benefit of the witness program, an erosion of the mafia's code of silence.
Those that are members of organized crime begin to wonder, is the guy that I just talked to, or the fellow that I'm planning to bring in narcotics with tonight, Is he going into this program tomorrow?
Buffalo's imprint on the program was spotlighted in a movie that related how mobster Paddy Calabrese was the first witness to get a new identity, but took with him into his new life the children of another man. That can no longer happen.
From a moral standpoint and from a human standpoint, one of the things we realized is that separating parents and children is something that the government ought not to do.
It's in courtrooms like this one throughout the United States that protected witnesses take their first step into a life of secrecy. Many of them return to crime, and some are murdered. Others seize the opportunity for a new start and make their new lives better than their old ones. But whatever happens, the witness program they enter always will remain controversial, simply because it usually means a government of law-abiding people has made a deal with a criminal.
I seized every opportunity I could to make a legitimate living.
It's a total farce. The reason the program's going to have problems is because all the variables in the program are human.
I mean, I'm still doing time, you might as well say.
Lee Coppola, Channel 7 Eyewitness News Nightcast.